incentives that Pakistan can offer. I think at this stage it's a bit premature because first of all, in terms of procedure, it's for the NSG to determine a criteria or benchmarks. That discussion is still taking place. There is no agreement or even some sort of emerging agreement on what could constitute a criteria or benchmark or elements of these criteria. We have a fair understanding of what could constitute a criteria, but that would be premature to list. From Pakistan's point of view, I think we have made statements at the highest level that we want to be mainstream in the non-proliferation regime. That's a significant statement. Pakistan will not transfer WMD technologies or items to states or non-state actors. We have a very robust export control regime, and that during our dialogues with several countries, and whenever opportunity comes at various international forums, so we try and highlight that. So there are, our posture is that we are prepared and to look at whatever NSC comes up with the criteria. The main point that we highlight is whatever criteria the NSC is able to evolve should apply equitably to all non-NPT states. To the second question on when I mentioned no change in country's position, I was actually referring to their own positions in terms of the process or in terms of support for either India or Pakistan. I gather that what you intend me saying or elaborating is whether Pakistan's outreach efforts have resulted in more countries. Certainly, our outreach has paid dividends, and there is a greater understanding and appreciation of Pakistan's credentials, and people see the arguments, the strength of our arguments and our case. But as we all know, the decision or the ultimate decision will take into account not just the technical aspects of it or the legal aspects of it, but I think the politics will play a major role. The third part, the second part of your question, in terms of criteria, Pakistan suggesting some criteria. Again, as I said earlier, I think it's premature for us. We are not members of the NSG yet, and for any non-member to suggest a criteria would be being out of line. So again, the main point is Pakistan has highlighted the fundamental aspect, and that is whatever criteria or benchmark the NSG evolves, it should be transparent, objective, non-discriminatory, and be applicable to all non-NPT states.
Thank you. Tariq?
First of all, as we mentioned by Brigadier Kazmi, the NSG has participated in governments. That means that the guidelines agreed by the NSG are not legally binding on the members of the NSG. Otherwise, they would be members, which is why they have to participate in governments. It's a set of guidelines which are voluntarily agreed. Even national export control legislation for each country is what determines their export policy. Similarly, the NSG guidelines that are published by the IAEA as an information circular are also not legally binding. Any ambassador from any country can send a letter to the IAEA to publish any document, a speech from a president as an insert. So that's just a way of putting something out, it's like a press release. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think some of the measures that Pakistan could take, and I've been discussing this with successors of Ambassador Naqvi in Vienna. Until 1998, Pakistan used to attend NPT Preparatory Committee and Review Conference meetings as an observer state, as a non-NPT observer state. Then after the 98 test, Pakistan stopped doing it, and my friends tell me NPT is not in our vocabulary, and other similar sayings, which I think now is counterproductive. Nobody's going to fight Pakistan in an NPT review conference. Nobody's going to drag Pakistan in chains and say, here, sign it. But when a country is in a room, first of all, the critical statements made against one are moderated. You have the opportunity to make a statement back, also circulate papers giving one's own point of view, which become part of the international record forever. And so this is tying one's hand behind one's back. And here I think the fault lies not only with the bureaucracy, but also with the civil society community, which is always up in arms. There's political parties, politicians, and so on. And in Austria, there's an advertisement that used to play for the Volkswagen car. So there's a family sitting, and the man is dreaming of buying a new Volkswagen car. So he has a little growth, which is like a Volkswagen car. And the advertisement shows over a week, and by the end of the week, the man's head, there's a whole car sitting on his head, which means that is what he's thinking. And so in my view, this fixation with India and the fixation with this is not in our vocabulary, and that is not in our interest, delay is in our interest, going slow is in our interest, are all these big things sitting on one's brain that is hampering progress and is preventing a new face and a new narrative. This is 2017. Times have moved, so people need to change their thinking. Doesn't mean you compromise all of one's principles. You need to present a new face and have new initiatives. So that's one. There are some other services, the International Physical Protection Service and so on at the IAEA, which is a right of any IAEA member state, which could be undertaken for Pakistan's own national interest, safety and security. It's not doing a favor to anyone. Two very quick questions. One of the a price that was paid for the 2008 exemption to India was that Brazil insisted that ABAC should be considered as a functional equivalent of the additional protocol, and that Argentina, Brazil should not sign the additional protocol. This concession was given, which goes against what the IAEA Director General has been asking since 1997, that for the IAEA to carry out its verification, it needs a safeguards agreement plus an additional protocol in force as a new verification standard for non-nuclear weapon states. Brazil and Argentina are non-nuclear weapon states. It was also my responsibility at the agency to negotiate additional protocols. And part of the problem with Brazil was that they have a naval nuclear program that they want to exempt enrichment from. Argentina is ready to sign the protocol, but not Brazil. ABAC is a quadripartite agreement where you have Argentinians on Brazilian territory and vice versa. That I don't think is going to happen here at nuclear facilities. With regard to the 8 nuclear power plants or whatever in India that may be outside of safeguards, as I mentioned, as a member state of the IAEA, India and Pakistan for that matter has the right to decide which power plants to put under safeguards. So if the Indians left off something, it is not up to the IAEA to go to them and say, why don't you put that? It's for other member states. So perhaps Pakistan could do that when in the next discussion in November, there is an agenda item on, they have an agenda item on reviewing NSG's cooperation with India to raise this issue. Is India really fulfilling the terms of the agreement that they made with you in 2008? And if you think there are deficiencies, then Pakistan can point those out.
Thank you. Now I will have to close the Q&A session. But I'll take one from, she is one of my own researchers. So,
thank you, sir. I think I'll be loud enough. I'm Saima Sal. I'm a senior research officer here at the center. I have a very brief question and just a comment to make on Pakistan. I personally feel is a responsible nuclear weapon state. And I do feel that there are certain measures that we don't need to tie up the NSG membership, and they are, from my perspective, cost-free, and hence we can take them. And one of them is the additional protocol, the other being the separation of the nuclear and civilian, the military and the civilian facilities. And I think this is one of those measures that we don't need to tie up to things like whether India does it or not, or to tie up to anything else. And I do feel that irrespective of not tying them up to something that's forthcoming, might enhance our prospects for membership in the group. This is a very personal view that I wanted to share. My question is actually comes from what Brigadier Kazmi was talking about, that transparency should be one of the conditions when the members, the PGs sitting inside the NSG should consider. And in this regard, I was recalling one of our meetings at the State Department where one of the staffers was mentioned this comment and it struck me. He said that we were moving ahead with the NSG membership of India if it had not been for the news leaking out. So I do feel that this is one of the things that negatively impacts how India was trying to be brought into through the back door. And the question that then comes to my mind from this is, how does obesity hinder our prospects for membership and our outreach? If this is the way things are going about, if the glossy formula, we never knew until it came out through one news story. Okay. How does it hinder our prospects?
Thank you. I now give the floor to Dr. Adil Sultan, but kindly be brief.